the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to order. We start with the roll call.
Yes. Aaron Angel. Here. Scott Conlon.
Here.
Jeff Ellenbogen is not present. Manoj Gangwar is not present. Paige Lewis.
Here.
Nicholas Novello.
Here.
Dan Olson.
Here.
And Council Liaison Tim Waters.
Here.
Great, thank you. We'll go ahead with approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda. Anyone?
I move that we approve the agenda as it is.
I will second. Great. All in favor? Great. Thank you. Now we'll move to approval of the previous month's minutes. So does anyone have any changes to the minutes that were shared? If not, we can get a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Anyone opposed?
I'm just abstaining
Because
because
you
I
weren't
wasn't
there.
there.
Okay, so we can go first to the public invited to be heard.
You guys have that? Were you able to put it up?
All the way, there's some that still want it.
There's still
Just
one?
pass it down.
Yeah, I think we can start.
Jonathan, what is
Oh, hi.
Jonathan, so if you just share your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Jonathan Robbie. I'm on 506 Flicker Avenue. I'm coming just to 2 reasons to say thank you for having such amazing golf courses in Longmont. We use them all the time, and all around this whole area is really appreciating that. We also hope that you guys can also look into more Frisbee golf courses opportunities, because I think that's becoming a really popular thing for young people as well as us old guys. I had kind of a bad experience at the rec center the other day. It was rather disheartening. It was in and around the volleyball that's going on. It's an interesting problem because it's a really great thing that turned into a really not so great thing. There's a new youth volleyball league at the rec center that's becoming quite successful, and it promoted a lot of new younger players wanting to play more. If you look in the catalog, it says drop-in volleyballs on Tuesdays, and I think Fridays, Mondays in the mornings, and then Wednesday, Fridays in the afternoon. And as one of the coaches for some of the youth volleyball players, one of the best teams, we had 4 or 5 kids from the group ask if they can go and join, and I would take them there. And so for about a whole month, all the way through the month of October, we went and played on Wednesdays, and we had a really good time. The kids got really quite good. They met the other adult players. And we went on Friday, and they got kicked out, just flat out. You're not old enough to play. You have to leave. And this was because some of the other players were there said, "This is adult now." And as a parent, it was like, well, there's a sign right there on the wall that says, "Drop in volleyball," and that's all it says. And then there's a thing and it's all it says, "Drop in volleyball." So I asked, well, what's the policy? How does that work? Because there seems to be lots of kids playing basketball that are under the age of 16. How come they don't have to leave, but just the volleyball kids? So there seems to be some application of policies or some misclarity in terms of why kids should be getting kicked out of the rec center during a drop-in game, when actually what's happening is that an outside adult volleyball group has sort of taken over that night and is now making sure that the other kids are either not welcomed. And I have a whole long video that I took, and some of the kids replied and gave me a video of their feelings about this, and they were pretty put out by the whole thing. It was kind of sad. So what I hope is the positive part of this is that these kids really want to play, and that there is a whole side with nothing going on. And we asked, well, could you just put up 2 nets? It's not that hard. Just put up another net in the open gym space way on the left over there. So that there's enough place for all the people that are showing up now to play, because it's making the adults mad because they're having to play with kids they don't want to play with, and the kids still want to play, and there's some of us adults who also want to play with the kids. And so we need there to be 2 nets up regularly on those open nights. I did not get a good response when I brought this up to the rec center themselves, and their whole statement was, we don't have the staff to do that. I was like, well, seems pretty easy to put up another volleyball net. So I would hope that there's some clarity on when you bring, and you are bringing kids who are in the 14 to below 16 ages, that when they have someone who's being their supervisor, they not get kicked out because they have a supervisor, and that is the policy, I do believe. And I don't think people at the rec center know how to handle that. What happens when you have someone bringing them to go play. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
So Jeff isn't here tonight, and generally, like, I don't know if
Yeah.
you say anything, or if you'll just take that back to him, or.
Well, that's for, you guys want me to speak to that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jeff
Please.
does use it.
Okay, I'm not sure the procedure here for that one. So I'm Ben Wagner, I'm the acting assistant recreation manager, and was made aware of your email, I think today,
Oh, okay.
and made sure that we sent it out to everybody here so they were able to take a look at that. And what limited resources, lots of need. Okay, that's kind of the simple thing there. How things went down, I'd like to work on that, but what I would really like to do is just talk to you about, with you and Chris Crone, who oversees the rec center directly, what the opportunities are, and to make sure that we're trying to accommodate as many people as we can with the resources we've got.
Totally great. Yeah.
So I'd like you to contact me, and we can talk about this more.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On the good news side, we're developing a park in southeast Longmont that has kids disc golf.
Cool.
It's made shorter holes intentionally made for littler kids. And then we're finishing up in the spring renovations to Lou Miller Park, which is one of the prime disc golf courses around the city. So
Yeah.
we run into some supply chain issues with that project, but we should have that buttoned up by May, June of 2023.
That's great.
Okay? So it's good to hear that people are still interested in disc golf, because we still have some out there.
For sure.
Hey, Jonathan, I'll send you an email.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Okay, Abby?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Abby. I live way up on the top of Magnolia, County Road 68J. And I wish parks were open and inclusive, of all people at any time, and prioritize people's interests, such as disc golf or just outside area instead of pickleball courts in areas that people don't really know that. I also would like to speak for a friend that is not here today. Sasha would like to say, I like visiting parks at night to unwind, but the park next to me is closed at sunset.
Thank you. Megan?
I'm Megan. I live at 2228 Cliffrose Lane, and I just want to say that parks are really important to me because sometimes school gets too much and I just have to get out and get away. So I either take my bike or I take my dog or just myself alone and I just go to a park to try, or any hiking trail that I can find to get away. And sometimes I bring a book with me and I can sit out there for a while. But it's getting winter, so I might not do that for a couple of months. But the parks and the trails are very important to me, and a lot of other people that I know from school that do the same thing.
Thank you. Lila?
Hi, I'm Lila Nicolay. I live around 751 West Hemlock Circle, down in Louisville, right in the middle of where Marshall Fire happened. I have always used parks as a sort of cool down space. It's always been where I can go if family or friends or really anything gets too much, to just sit there and enjoy peace and quiet and a sort of freedom from any other stresses or anxieties or anything like that. I would really like it if more parks prioritized just having some open space and native plants and just peacefulness instead of all just being like sport parks or sport fields or fields for specific activities. I obviously still think that we need a lot of those, but I feel like there should be more parts of the parks that are just, peaceful.
Thank you. Is it Jesse?
My name is Jesse, and I live at 137 Casper Drive in downtown Lafayette. And I use parks to go and de-stress as well. I usually love sitting at the edge of the lake and sometimes just yelling into the emptiness.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else signed up. Is that it? Great. Thanks so much for taking time to come and share your thoughts with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to stay as long as you want to stay warm and bail when you come. Here, or when you try to fix you.
Okay, so we'll close public invited to be heard and move to old business.
Is that me? Yep. You're on. Beach recreation facility, so my understanding, and Councilman Waters can maybe help me with this, is that the next discussion concerning the new tax is supposed to happen coming up pretty quick, I believe.
I think on the 29th of November.
Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of where that sits. I will update as far as internally. They hope to have an RFP out from purchasing for the new feasibility study and an update to the parks program master plan this week, next week, at some point here. We're pretty close, and get that going in January or something. Our goal. Get one of the companies in here. So that's where we're at with that. And do you have any questions on
Remind me,
things
what's
we
the
don't know?
size of this budget for the proposal of the RFP?
150,000 for the feasibility study and 40,000 for the master plan update.
Okay.
So they're combined into one because we expect the same. It's the same company.
And the timing is still a ballot issue a year from now, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're hoping, what I'm trying to project is that we have this information back by the end of spring, so in May.
So this is like for a few months, is it?
Yeah.
You know, by the time this gets done, it's January, and we gotta be ready by April?
Well, I'm hoping to have it done by May, and get information that council can use.
Okay.
As we formulate, this is in my mind, as we formulate what the wording would look like for a recreation facility.
And as part of this, the proposal is community meetings and talk to interest groups.
Yep.
Or the whole bit in
Yep.
those
Yep.
3 or 4-ish months.
Yeah, yes. And so if you remember the last time, it would be certainly similar to that. We want it to be as robust as possible, getting to as many groups as possible to get the feedback for what people are looking for at this point.
Okay, good. I just want to be clear, when I advertise to folks who bugged me, that's this spring is when it's happening, right? Okay, so thanks.
What will the outreach to groups that don't have access, have less government access be?
I don't have that answer for you right now.
Okay.
That would be something we'll work with.
Yeah, that's something I think is really important.
I agree, as many folks as we can.
If this group has ideas, it's great, but we do have a actually fully filled out, they have all the positions filled for our public information group right now, so we finally have people that kind of representing stuff, and I know there'll be someone tasked to help with this piece, so they'll take it on at the professional level, but I think sometimes that kind of can miss some of the pieces that we pick up in a like this too.
And we'll certainly be talking with our internal departments that are in touch with as many different community groups as possible to try to get the word out when the opportunity is there.
Could you send that RFP to, or have someone send it around to us when it goes out?
Yeah.
Just so we can get.
Cool, thanks.
Directly. That'd be awesome. And then, so it's the.
Check with purchasing on that then?
Yep.
Might be have to wait until after the contract's awarded. Not
Yeah,
sure.
I don't
Right,
sure
if
there's-
it's an RFP,
I think, oh, it's.
Government rules are different than nonprofits. I'm not sure.
well, you can
Well,
tell
if it's the
us,
same
tell us where
thing-
it's posted.
Or I can get it on
Yeah.
BidNet and
Yeah.
I can share it with you.
Rocky Mountain
Right.
BidNet. Yeah. It's on Rocky Mountain BidNet is where
There's some version of that
Yeah.
yes.
You can
Now-
just let
now
us
when
know
the
it's
process
posted
starts,
and
then it
where
becomes-
contractors
Right, yeah,
might
see,
have
that's-
it.
Any other questions on that?
Thanks, Ben. It's been a complicated piece. There's been a lot of moving parts. There's been a lot of information. There's been a lot of deadlines going to go. So Jeff and Ben have done a great job of trying to stay on top of this for us. We've definitely been involved in the process where they've taken the lead.
And when that comes before council on the 29th, what will the discussion be then?
Well, first of all, I'm not, so, as soon as I
Maybe.
think I know when something's going it changes. So,
Yeah.
I was in a meeting earlier today where Harold was in the meeting and I looked at Harold and said the 29th, and I think he said yes, but, you know, there's some things that could change. And I'm just assuming that Sandy Cedar will play a significant role in terms of the public engagement process. Questions like, what is that plan and what are the segments of the population? And what's the approach and how much access with folks who aren't typically engaged with what the city's doing. Those will all be, I have no doubt those are going to be central to the engagement process. I'm certain there'll be questions about polling as well. I don't know if you remember that the last time we did this, the approach to polling that we took and what we learned from that. But I'm certain all that will be part of the package, and whatever we see it, we'll bring the questions. I'm certain Sandy will be, if it's Sandy who's doing the presentation, it may be somebody from the communications staff. They'll address most of those topics. They can anticipate what the questions are going to be. I'm certain they'll address them at the top, and then we'll get into it. So.
And just a reminder, at some point we talked about this, but at the appropriate time, it'd be good to have guidance for CRAB members about how they can engage in support of, if it moves forward to be a ballot initiative, what we can do and in what capacity. Project management approach, do we want to move on to that?
Yeah, I can kick that off, and Steve's here to kind of.
Can I say one more thing, David? Just before we leave this. Paige, I don't remember if you were in the room when we were in the process of engaging the public or anticipating the last ballot question, right, for the preliminary seminar. Dan was in the room, as I'm certain. But we had a room full of hockey advocates that night. You remember this?
I remember the pool one in particular.
It was that package, but there was one night
Right.
when we had a number, it was standing remotely in this room, and it was the ICE community that was here.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And we kind of went around the room and, what the expectations were or the best hopes of people. At the end of that conversation, I didn't hear a single word during that conversation about anybody having reached out to the school district. There was just no knowledge of what the school district would support. The assumption was that they would support a hockey program. Turns out, not so much. I think that's one of the reasons the school district, kept this at arm's length. But I did ask the question that evening, so what's your plan to get behind this? Well, what role are you going to play in helping to design and roll out a campaign? And the response was, don't lay that on us. Right? My question was, well, who do you think is going to do that? The staff isn't going to do that. Your council members can't once we put it on a ballot. And in my opinion, part of the reason that failed by 11 points or whatever is there was almost no campaign. right?
Right.
There was a small effort. Sharon O'Leary and a group got together, and there were like 8.5 by 11 yard signs or something, very small yard signs. But there was really no campaign strategy. There was no messaging committee. There was no fundraising to get behind this. So when you ask the question rhetorically, what's a role for Proud members?
Well,
You're
that's
not
why
gonna-
I asked.
Yeah. There will be many. And it's one thing, there'll be constraints on what you can do as a committee in terms of campaigning. There will be no constraints on what you can do as individuals, or your ability to write letters to the editor, or show up and make comment during public invite to be heard. Somebody's going to have to provide leadership as well, both on a campaign committee and all that entails. Sorry.
No, I think that's
No, I
great.
think
I
that's
think it's probably a good
No,
handoff between staff and this group as we become, just providers of information. You really get to push this out in the community for the interests that you really here representing.
Yeah, I had no idea what that.
And I feel like last time I didn't really know what role we could play. I mean, I was new on the board.
No,
I
and
didn't know
the
what
board,
we could do.
I talked to several different groups, but they were already in, the pool folks and the hockey folks, but we didn't broaden our scope enough by a long shot.
And this one has potential to be pretty broad. Depending
Correct.
on what ends up being in it. So.
And pretty big.
Well, and the 20 year ago when we got the rec center built, I can recall being there with my kids, and we're putting things on maps, and here's what we're going to design. I mean, it was huge. It was at the senior center, the old version of the senior center, and it was awesome. And there was, there was 200 people in the room, with kids all the way to elderly folks, and it was huge. And these people are all talking about it, and I didn't see that at all. Where was that then?
We'll do that again. We'll do that again.
Yeah.
We did that after the money was already approved for the rec center.
Right.
So we went through the process of what the rec center is going to be. There will be a process that we go through for that after the bonding or
we need
taxation
something along those lines ahead of time to get to that point.
That's actually that sounds like, because when people see themselves in something potentially,
Right.
they want.
2019. Was the
Yeah, thank you. Right. That makes sense because it'll be 4 years with next year. Yeah.
David, I would suggest you and Jeff maybe talk about that, because that's not anything I anticipate before the ballot, because that takes staff time and money. We would need to have a consultant on task to lead that process for us until after we have.
It makes sense what you say, that we did it after the money is it, because we had a hard cap. Here's what we get to spend, and what are you going to fit into that?
People were buying.
But somehow that got
and
folks
things.
excited, and maybe that's a before the issue this time to get again folks excited, or this is what we're visualizing, or I don't know.
I can imagine it would cost very much money to get some big, huge pieces of paper that.
It's not.
It just takes effort.
It's the consultant.
Us or
the cost
folks.
estimates and
Right.
do these analyses and things that costs. And staff time.
I think one of my expectations of the consultant that we're going to get for a feasibility study is we're doing a feasibility on something.
Right.
And they've got to get feedback on what that thing is. And so.
Oh, the meetings that get to that point,
I
yes.
don't know if it'll be as granular necessarily as that, but you need to know what the new rec center is.
We need to get enough folks involved then.
Or at least have that idea.
Right.
That, so when we take that forward to council, that here's what the proposed package is from staff to community and this company that we believe we need. And then
Well, to your point, Paige, I think that we're looking for something broader. Last time it was competitive pool and ice. And so those two groups were heavily engaged and no one else, as it turns out.
There's a lot of conversation.
Right.
But we're
Anyway.
going to do better this time.
Yes, I agree. Okay.
And you will keep us in the loop as to.
Definitely.
Let's move on to project management capacity.
Great, I will kick this off here. This is a conversation that really started as I talked to this group in the community about us getting parks built, getting parks renewed, and really the neighbors and HOAs would call and say, when's that park that was supposed to be built going to get built? And I think I was pretty open to this group that to make sure it was known that one of my priorities was getting that done. I felt that we needed to get some additional staff to do that. We took that through the budget process, and that did not happen. Community and council members kind of then asked, well, how are we going to make this happen? And I think as we went through this process, one of the things that I'd like to start out is that Harold has really been looking at where we're at and what we need and what we've been doing and why that wasn't working and what other opportunities are out there. So we've had a chance to spend some time in a room with Harold and Joni and Valerie, I was going to say Scott, our purchasing person, to say what have we been doing in the past that maybe could be done better now. And part of that is capacity, but also is process too. And we've been really looking at how we can do a better job of using what we have, but also then looking at identifying needs as we go through this process. So that's really not off the table, but there really are some pieces that Harold has been supportive in. Can we change process? Are there different ways of doing things? So he would like to see 8 parks, large trail segments, large projects really get completed in the next 5 years. So with the capacity we had with Steve and Kathy and Danielle taking on some of that work, that was a challenge. We couldn't figure out how to quite get there. Now we're down Kathy, so it's really kind of pushing that. But Steve has gone out and gone to some trainings that you probably talked about a little bit as far as design build. But we've also gone back to Harold and said, here's what we think we can do, but we probably will need some additional support to get this done. So Steve's done a pretty good job of, I think, making one-pager. We actually had a full board set up here with like pages and stuff here. So let Steve kind of walk you through this. But again, I just want to make sure you know that even though we're at this point, we didn't get those positions from Harold on down, there is a definite desire and direction to move getting park projects done, and this 8 and 8 as Steve will talk about, or 8 and 5 as Steve will talk about, does not mean we're dropping the St. Brain 13 that Danielle's working. It's not dropping Lou Miller that Steve's working on. So we'll be working on other projects as we're going through this as well. So Steve, did you need one of those for yourself?
No, I've got memories.
You can share too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I have to see
I can
pictures
glance at
far
Danielle.
away from me.
That's fine. So thanks, David. So yeah, so as you guys are aware, the way we've been historically doing projects is what's called a design bid build project. We hire a designer, we identify a project, we hire a designer, we go through a public process, we go to city council, make sure they're okay with the concept plan, master plan, whatever you want to call it, and then we design the whole thing using staff time and other consultants. And then we take that package, put it out to a construction bid. And these days, the process from when the design is done to when the contractor is under construction is typically about 5 months. With the whole bidding process and then awarding process, purchasing has staffing resource challenges as well. And so getting the contracts through the city attorney's office takes time, because the attorney's office has resource challenges. So and then from that point of when you award the contract, depending on the size of the project, you're looking at 10 to 20 months, roughly, for a construction contract, depending on the scope. What we've been finding out and doing a little bit of digging is that the design build process, which we have used minimally before, we did it for the skate park at Sandstone Ranch. We used a design build contractor, and but that was a sub under a general contract, so it wasn't quite a design build. Same as what I'm talking about now. It's not apples to apples. We have tried to use it for water treatment plant expansions in the past and been successful in that. One of our retired engineers, Larry Wayno, was a bit of a design build, I won't call him guru, but he was well informed on that and traveled a lot around the design build world. So I went to a conference a couple weeks ago with the Design Build Institute of America and met a lot of industry folks. Now, a lot of design build work coming in 2023. By 2023, 47% of government projects nationally will be done on a design build basis. We're talking, I was in a talk with the man and the woman who run New York's $1 billion annual budget to rebuild all their facilities. They're rebuilding all their jails to replace Rikers Island right now under design build. A woman who's running the Puget Sound Metro upgrade system upgrade is doing it under design build. You know, these are big, big things. I was the only landscape architect in a bunch of a whole room of engineers and building contractors and things like that. So when I tried to dial it into a park, I got a lot of blank stares, but had a lot of good side conversations with people, and I really think that this is an exciting way to go that will not only lead to a good project, it will be less city resource intensive, It puts a lot of the risk back on the design build team, not on the city. And it's a way that we can get projects done. That 5-month period that I mentioned, sort of in the middle of the process, essentially disintegrates. It's a little bit heavier up front, and I'll explain why in a second. But once you get the team going, I'm thinking that we can take that 15 to 25 month window and shave that down to 10 to 15 months. You know, that's a significant reduction in the length of time that will take to get a finished product to the public, which is really our goal, is to get it out there built. So,
Steve, can I just interject one more piece here? The other piece, I think, having these smaller conversations with Harold and Jody in the room, I think there was a higher level knowledge of what else that staff, Steve's and Kathy's and Danielle's were working on. Stuff that's not on there. RSVP is not on there. The CIP project where you need the land. We don't have a citywide landscape division, and to meet those needs, they're being pulled in. So there's a lot of, well, why spend so much time on these other projects? We didn't have anyone, and as an organization, I think this group also recognized how important it is when you do a project that you have trees tied into that into that concrete design of the street. So the value they added was significant. Harold is also now saying, well, those other groups need to bring that in. They can be a contractor, then it has a landscape architect. They need to look at potentially hiring a landscape architect that's more of a citywide. So Harold is looking at this, I think, at a little bit different level too, on some of those gaps that when we just say we're doing other stuff, those other stuff are, I think, things that are really valuable to community. I think Harold really kind of recognized that and is looking to fill some of those gaps as well. So that time frame Steve gave is the perfect timeline without Steve being pulled in multiple directions.
Right, yes. The projects that other departments are running take away a lot of our time that we can't then put toward our projects. So what we did is we tried to identify 8 projects. We also wanted to make sure that we identified projects that are already underway, that we don't want to slow down by this new thing. This new thing's going to take a little time to get off the ground. So we identified in the purple box to the left, you can see projects that we're continuing to do. The Button Rock Master Plan, Danielle can probably give you an update on that here. Gala, I'm getting 100% design drawings are coming the Monday after Thanksgiving.
And he's adding 2 more pickleball courts to that.
I did. It's the easiest design change, just draw 2 more rectangles over here. There we go. I need more money from you in order to pay for it, but that's a later conversation. Same frame, page 13. The Lou Miller Park renovations that Kathy had started that I've taken on, and then the Kensington Park restroom is another project that is slowly ongoing, but is outside of this whole design build umbrella. These future projects are other projects we've identified in the near future that need to happen. A lot of them are park renewal projects. We want to make sure, I've stressed this to David, that in talking with Timber, we feel as though over the past 3-4 years, we've done a lot of park renewal work. We had a big climb ahead of us, that we've gotten over that hump. We want to make sure we don't just create another huge hump by ignoring park renewal for 4 or 5 years, while the pretty sparkly design build projects are all on our forefront, and we're working on that. And 5 years down the road, we've got a huge list of park renewal projects we have to do without the funds, resources, time to do it. So we're cognizant of that, and so that's going to be existing as of right now outside of design build. Those type of projects don't necessarily lend themselves to design build because there's a lot more doing little things here, little things there, rather than major construction, which is what design build lends itself to.
So that's the future projects, like that's in the purple box,
Yes.
future projects?
Yep.
And those are ones as Lou Miller drops off Steve's plate, then you pick something else up. We would just go to this whole design build and just not do anything else.
Yes.
We think if there's capacity getting for them to do these renewals of these projects they're working on, as we get the design build going, they'll still have that capacity. We'd like to see how we can kind of continue to work those into it.
And then, so what we did was we took the 8 projects and sort of grouped them into groups of 2 for similar design teams and construction teams, like work. That was at the recommendation of our purchasing manager, Valerie Scott, who was nervous about jumping into one contract with 8 projects in 5 years about something we've never done before. I wholeheartedly agree. And we're going to be using a design or best value approach as far as the procurement policy process, which is also going to make things a little bit more quick. But that's a process that you can use for design build where basically they have to come to you and You can advertise, you're not advertising, you're not asking for this project, you're asking them for the design build skills. They come to you with a 6-page proposal, half-hour interview, you pick 3. And those are the 3 that you're dealing with then to negotiate for the first blue box up here. At the time of negotiating the first blue box, which is neighborhood parks, that's one we sort of chosen to move forward with. The South Clover Meadows Park, that design was not far enough along where we felt we couldn't include in this process. So I'm taking my early design and I'll give that to the design team that, based on the master plan that was already done. And then Fox Meadows Neighborhood Park, I presented to the HOA last week and told them that their project was going to be one of the first that we do too. So we're going to hit those first 2 neighborhood parks hard to try to get those moving. That will be the first design build contract that we enter into in 2023. So like I said, with the 3 firms that we finalize, 3 teams, I should say, because it's a contractor and a design team that team up together to create an LLC or whatever it is to create the firm that you hire. We would, of those 3, we would say, okay, here's how I describe the park. I'll write this long narrative about what these parks should include, what they may include. We have to go through a public process still for Fox Meadows to see what the neighborhoods want, the residents want, and then they give us a price. And then they work with us. The price includes design, construction, everything at the very beginning. And then they tell us, and then with the best value approach that we'll be using, we don't have to take the low price. We can take the one with the best value for the city. And so that gives us the flexibility, whereas in design bid build, we're often tied into that. We have to have a reason why we wouldn't pick a low bid. And a reason that you don't like their subcontractor is not a good enough reason I've found, although it would have helped me in the past, but that is a reason that's viable in this design build process. So there's a lot more negotiation going on. It does take several months to get through this process, if you can imagine, but Valerie has assured us that she is going to put the resources aside to help us through this because she's excited to get this process. She and Harold, with Harold's direction, is really excited to get this process within the city's wheelhouse for procurement, and Harold thinks that this could be a process we use for road rehab and sewer line maintenance and things like that. I don't care. That's somebody else's deal. I don't worry about that. So anyway, that's the first group. The other 3 groups that we identified were trail projects, Union Reservoir Loop Trail and St. Bernard Greenway Phase 12. Those are both projects that are either funded or show funding in the next 5-year CIP. We've got large complex projects, which is the Quail Campus build out and Dry Creek Phase 2. There's some thoughts about the Quail Campus build out. If you remember the existing master plan, the current master plan that was adopted by council back in the late 2000s, shows an ice facility on there. There is talk that we may re-engage the public and go back to the public and see if that ice facility actually might not be the best use of that space, and there might be some other activities that might use that space much more effectively and quickly. And so that's a conversation we'll be having with the community as we move forward. And the board obviously will be part of that discussion. And then Dry Creek Phase 2 is the build out of everything in Dry Creek Park except for the rec center and outdoor pool that are shown, at sort of the southeast corner. And then the 4th category is existing park additions. That's changing the existing Dry Creek Park fields to synthetic turf, and the Sandstone Ranch Phase 4 project, which is shown as funded, the construction funding for next year. And that's the last bit of ball fields at the southwest corner of that park.
Steve, I was looking through my emails. How many parks did Valerie say that for the Arizona?
Minnesota, yeah. They did 55 projects, but it was only $18 million. And they had some park renovations. Now, Harold wondered if we should go to Roseville, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. We haven't gotten there yet. So we'll see if we want to go out there. And that's part of that, David, that wasn't necessarily design build, that was BDA.
Okay.
So we're doing 2 new processes here.
Exactly.
Best value approach is a procurement method. Design build is a design construction method. So we're using DBA to pick a DB firm. So the DBA, I'm actually extremely nervous about it because I always get these 30-page proposals and there's doing these long interviews with all these different folks. It's one person that come in, they talk to you for a half hour, 6 pages, you have to choose. That makes me uncomfortable, but we'll see. A lot of this is outside my comfort zone, based on how I've done it previously. But the goal is, based on Harold, he doesn't care if we fail. He wants us to try something new to get things going, because we're not getting the additional staff that we need, and so we need to come up with a different way to do it with the staff we have. So this is the approach we've come up with.
And this best value piece, really, we got to talk to the founder's sons. It sounds like a family that has kind of worked on this, as being used widely in Europe and in large parts of the US too, to do procurement. And really what they're saying is, when you do this sort of process and you're asking people to come in and take the time to put in front of you their package, you're getting their top performers. And they have a economic incentive to get this thing done as fast as possible, because you get your price up front. So
right. So they say Clover Meadows Park's going to take $1.7 million. It's to their interest to design the park to the specifications that we write at the beginning that meets the community needs. Now, in their proposal, to make them more attractive, is where they start saying, well, we can do this, this, and this, things that might be above and beyond what's in the scope that would be attractive to the community, that would allow us to choose maybe the 1.8 million rather than the 1.7 million vendor, the 3 teams that we go to. That's what I'm still learning again, so if this is confusing, I apologize. But it's really a way that the vendor can show off how good they are, the vendor being the design build team, and the city having the option to choose the best value for the city, even if it's a little bit more money, there might be more value to it in the long run.
So currently, so I'm not super versed in this, so currently what has to happen is, let's say Bob's Parks says, we can do it for $200, and Ralph's Parks, etc. says, oh, we're gonna do one for $195. We have to take the $195.
We have to justify why we don't take the 195. And Joe's Parks, if they don't like the justification, they can come back at us. Now, there have been reasons why we don't choose the lowest bid, but it's not as easy as just saying no. It's the obvious low bid is what we go with.
Now, if Bill's Park says, well, ours is going to be $250, but we're going to put a roller coaster in, and Bill says like, well, ours is still $185, but we got a skating rink for you. Then we can choose whichever one we want, and we don't have to justify it anyway. I'm just trying to make
yes.
sure.
Justification process.
Scoring process is the justification. It's like, this is the best value for the city.
Okay.
Even though it's a higher price, the value we think we're getting.
Tell me, because this is right up your alley. Tell me if you know about this stuff, because it's all about the metrics, which is right in your thing. I don't know how to put metrics on creativity. I don't believe in that. They say they can do it, but I'm still worried about losing the creativity in these parks.
I'm familiar with design build, but
not the
metrics of it are
okay.
Yeah, the best value piece is.
Are there city ordinances, laws that we have to change in order to do this? Is that written in already, that we take the low bid?
The procurement requirements are already vetted by council, by the city attorney's office. The city attorney's office has already vetted a design build contract previously that has been used by the city. So we've already vetted that.
So that bridge has been crossed
to do a different methodology, which has also been suggested by Harold, makes purchasing in the city attorney's office a little hesitant, because it takes a long time to push that contract through their review. Months and months. And so we're trying to use something that's already existing within our purchasing code.
This is really exciting.
And I'll just say, I think Steve has actually been.
Yeah, I've been pretty jazzed. I'm still nervous as hell. But
I would be too. I would be too. You're like, oh,
very different. There's a little bit more hands-off piece, because one of the pieces that when they see these things fail, it's really where the group procuring this service gets in the way of the process. And that's what we've kind of heard, that it really is, if you're being the best people, and you're probably having to spend less time out there, and the more time you're spending with them is keeping them from doing their projects. So it is a piece, I think all of us in here kind of wonder how you just turn over a city project that, Steve's and Kathy's and Paul's over the years have done such a great job working with the community. We bring an outside person in to fill that role. But again, the assurance is that you're picking the best people with the best skills, or bringing their best people who have done this kind of work.
So are there gonna be, I mean, I'm guessing, even when you hire a contractor, you need somebody to manage and oversee the contractor.
Yeah.
So are there, I'm guessing that you still don't have enough capacity, even with this new approach. So
So-
is that being recognized and
Yes.
considered?
Yes. Two things. One is right now on a project, if a contractor builds something and the contractor says, well, this is per plan, I can't do anything about it unless I pay them to change it. If the contractor in the design build team are working on something and I say that this has to be a age 6 to 8 playground and they specify the wrong play equipment, that's between them. Rip it out and do it over. I don't care. It's not, city's just, nope, not for us. Takes the risk away from the city, puts it on the design build team to design and build what the city want within our budget. And that's one of the benefits that I'm seeing from this is that you have a lot more control, even though I don't have to be on site holding the contractor's hand every day. If I come out and say we want an irrigation system and I found out that the irrigation system was only 12 inches deep, dig the whole thing up, do it again. Not my
So you
problem.
still have to inspect, to your
And
point,
you
We
still
still
need
somebody's
capacity.
still watching,
But it's
maybe not as carefully.
It's not as close. You have
Okay.
a lot more latitude, and which stretches my time over a greater period of greater space of projects. That being said, you'll notice on here that we have a couple term positions shown on here. I think that we have, assuming there's the next Kathy, I think between Kathy, Danielle, and I, we have the capacity to bite off the first design build contract. I'm hoping that David will approve an owner's rep for me that would help us through that process as someone that's more educated in design build, that for several $1,000s we can hire to advise us, which I think would be a good idea in the beginning. But after that, we need people to be coming in and doing things so we can still be doing the things in the purple and all the other
So I
things
was
that we do.
wondering about all
Right.
the other things that are not the design build
So-
too.
Joni has been very clear to Harold that we need more staff to accomplish this. He has said that his experience is that when we hire term staff, they often become permanent staff. But he's open to talking about term staff right now. We also got to figure out who's going to manage the overall design build contract. And you'll notice the little orange box in the upper right, there's two ways of doing that we've come up with. One is to struggle by with between David, me, integrated services, which is our budget folks, and purchasing, or to hire someone that we've been trying to hire, which did not get approved in the budget or did not get put into the budget last year, which was a manager for park and trail design or planning and development. So maybe we can hire that person. I presented that to Harold and Joni several times. They seem amenable to it, but I don't know where that's going to go. That's really that's between David and Joni and Harold. But they've heard the message that we need people. We can't do this by ourselves.
And I think as you see, as we kind of, last time we put it up as kind of things, we kind of did a little reveal with kind of sticky boards up there. And by the time we got to the last piece, which is kind of closed behind those doors, Joni's like, well, you need more people to do this. And
Yes, we do. Yes, we're on the same page.
Well,
so it kind of it leads a conversation to, I think, a conclusion, which is kind of what's been nice about this process, kind of walking through and seeing what we want to get done, what we have, using metric-based approaches that I think as people look at it, we definitely need some additional capacity. And
I hope that, I'm really glad to hear that, and I hope that that continues, that the folks you all are working with continue to hear that crowd is particularly interested in that. And I think it's great. I mean, this is an exciting new approach. I think if you're approaching it with a really positive, energetic attitude, which is great. But I think it's not going to succeed if you don't still recognize that there is some additional capacity needed. You can't just
It's not magic.
move all the pieces around it.
And I've been open with this group on, that's why we're here, that this is important to me and I'll continue to ask. I think Joni's been a great champion in this. Another piece, I think that, some things start and then other things get distracted. If we don't continue to focus and move down this path, it just puts us further behind. Steve has invested a lot of time in this, Valerie has, and if we end up going back to the way things were, I think I feel like we really need to move this direction, at least let's see how that first blue box goes.
Our previous work plan was for Fox Meadows to start the design fourth quarter of 2022. So I had to go tell the HOA that, we're not gonna do that. We've been telling them that for 7-8 years now. And they were not thrilled, but when I explained this and I said, I can tell you that with this process, even though it's gonna take longer upfront, expect the design engagement with the public to be happening May, June, July of next year. It's gonna take us that long to get a design build team on board. They'll hit the ground running and they can get the grading plan done. The contractor can start grading before the plans are even done. Like once you get your grading set, the contractor can go out there and start doing. So I told them, we'll be moving dirt by the end of next year. We're not gonna have the final design done by the end of next year likely, but we'll be far enough along where we can be doing some of the civil construction. That's the start of every project, that we can show that we're working toward getting them a park, and then they'd have a park in 2024. So,
Is this the future park
Yeah,
site?
that's exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because it's been more than 7 or 8 years.
well,
You're in the future.
it was 2003 when that land was dedicated to the city.
Right.
We didn't promise it to them really in an expedient format until the master plan was adopted by council in 2014.
Okay.
And when 14, that was one of the top priority projects. And then we
I've had several of those neighbors say, yeah, and we want the name to be Future
Park.
Park. That's, I mean,
They want a rocket theme.
whatever, we want Future Park
I
as
said
its
that to
name.
the HOA that does not meet the naming criteria of the city council unless they choose that, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was thinking that I personally would like, and maybe I'll just start bringing it, I would like a map for our names. 'Cause there's so many things that I know these things, but I'd like just to, like, whenever we're talking about stuff, I wanna see where it is, because I know some of the names. I've been to every single park that we have.
This is what Steve was really good at.
But
so.
it's so hard for me to remember the names. I have 8,000 kids to remember their names.
Sure, I get it. So here's the rec center.
Yeah,
Here's Nino Gallup Park.
yeah,
You know
maybe
one,
that
right?
one,
Okay.
yeah.
So that one's the one that's we're going forward with. You know where Lou Miller is, right by Longmont High School?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Lou Miller is right here with the big pond.
Between the hospital and
Okay.
the
Hospital.
Okay.
That's ongoing. That's
Oh,
ongoing.
Lou Miller, okay,
The
Lou
rehab
Miller's
project.
That's where the disc golf is. and,
Okay, yeah, that, okay, I know,
That's
at my
under
church.
construction.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
like,
you
that's
can
the one my church,
Right.
sponsored for a lot of years, okay.
Okay. And then St. Frame Phase 13 is Danielle's project. Got it way out, sorry. Which is really connecting Sandstone Ranch to St. Frame State Park.
So this is 12
That's
or
the
13,
one-
Phase 13. This is the one that Danielle's already
Oh,
working on.
gotcha.
for-
That's the one, that's the one with the
Yes.
storage unit in the
Yes.
archery thing
Yep,
that we
yep,
saw, that we're
yes.
really excited about.
Yes.
Can we just stop that storage unit, thanks?
We didn't, no. We didn't want to, it's in Weld County.
Actually, they're working very well with us.
Very good, yeah, because I saw that started construction.
Oh, yeah,
We're gonna need the storage unit.
Um,
Everybody's gonna buy all their crap from Costco and have to have someplace to store it.
Right. That was a project that we decided we were too far along with design. There were some funding challenges.
We can't do design build with CDOT.
CDOT doesn't, even though federal funds are allowed for design build, the CDOT doesn't allow that in the current guidelines, so you couldn't do that.
Okay.
But anyway, the new park projects are Clover Meadows, which is way down in southwest Longmont. If you remember it's right here. Wait, where am I?
Portico and,
And-
Over here.
yeah.
And what's going on with that park? I can't remember. Is that gonna be the dog park?
Nope.
No.
This one, the master plan showed playground, an open turf area, exercise stations, a bike skills area. It's only a 6.8 acre park.
I seem to think that's the one that I've had community members approach me and say that they really want it to be a natural area and not turf.
No, I think that's the one. I think that's the one up here.
Yeah, that's a.
It may be
It's
this one right
I
here.
can-
It could be,
I can find those.
but right now, city council has already approved the master plan, and we're moving forward with the design as is. The conversation isn't open any longer on that unless city council recommends so.
Okay.
Fox Meadows is the other part that does not have an approved master plan. We've done no preliminary design on it.
And
That's
that's future park.
That's over,
Yes.
that's Future Park, that's over here, 9th and County Line Road,
Yeah.
and that's right here. This one's interesting because this is the park site, this is the future school site. There have been rumblings that the district might not want this land. Do we make this a 20-acre park? Is that appropriate inside a neighborhood, a huge 20-acre park? I don't tend to think so, but maybe there's something, we'll have to have conversations with the district about that. We also paid for a pump station in the golf course right here back in 2007 or 8. And so we need to get an easement from the HOA for this property to get the pipe between here to the park. So that's something I brought up at the HOA meeting, and I'll have to negotiate an easement from them.
I think one thing,
Which takes
Steve, that
time.
this process is gonna do, is gonna have to help us make some decisions, because every one of these park projects, it turns into these long conversations about, is the school district going to build a school there? Is it gonna be a bigger park? Are they gonna build housing there? What kind of park did you need next time? I think there's a big point, we just have to make a decision. If it's the
Right.
rise of Union Reservoir, that we continue to have these ongoing conversations, because there's really no hard deadlines. We're gonna make a decision, almost like the pickleball courts at Quail Campus. Is it gonna be pool? Is it gonna be ice? Well, that's a 20-year conversation. The life cycle of probably pickleball courts is 20 years, and we can decide that in 20 years then, so.
It's really calling Scott Tillian over the district and say, hey, you still interested? If he says yes, they're still gonna build something here, the conversation's over,
Right.
as far as I'm concerned. If they say no, then we need to talk to leadership and, what do we wanna put there? Is that the best use? Is more park? Is it open space? Is it affordable housing? Is it sell it off to the private sector to develop? I don't know. That's not my deal. I just know about this land here.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's Fox Meadow. So those are the two neighborhood parks that we're gonna be starting on. Union Loop Trail, believe it or not, is a trail around Union Reservoir.
That one was easy.
Yeah, you sent us, you
Yeah, I got
had
that
the
one.
handouts when we were on the trip and all that, right,
Yes,
right.
that helps. I just like
Right.
I like the
Does this
reminder. Yeah, it just helps, and I think I really am just gonna bring the bike map and just have it like, you know what I mean? Because the bike map is it's so good. It's like my favorite map. But yeah,
And so that's one that's already been approved by council. The money is already funded for that, if I remember right. So that's just design and build. There's no more public process. There's no land easements we need up in here. It's gonna be tight up in here, but we'll be working with the reservoir company, of which we're the majority shareholder. So that's the loop trail, and then the other one is Golden Ponds not the Pella, but Golden Ponds is right here. Trail on the north side of the river, underneath Airport Road, and then connecting up to Westview Middle School on the west side of Airport Road. Boulder County is looking to make their trail system come across and connect into our trail system somewhere around the railroad track crossing. And so they've been pushing off. They've had some problems with property owners up in this area. This landowner wouldn't give them the route they wanted. They're under contract to buy this land or acquire this land, I should say, in 2024.
isn't that Swags right
Yes.
there?
Yes.
Dale?
So 2024 or 25, the county will own that land, and they don't have to ask for permission to put the trail where they want it. They just do it. So they're playing the waiting game there. That contract was signed before 2010, probably 2000. Is it 25, 26?
Yeah, almost 90 now.
Yeah.
I know her from
Her
decades.
kids are.
But her kids.
Her kids are there too, and they are
Right.
great stewards of land, and that's a Centennial Farm,
Yeah.
and there is value in keeping Centennial Farm, so it
Sure.
has to
And
be done super respectfully.
Right.
That's the county's decision, not mine,
Right.
which
Okay.
is great. So those are the two trail projects. Quail Campus build out, we talked about that. That's the land right over here. Country Club, sorry, my landmarks, or 192 over here. There's all this land up in here. The museum is currently working on some conversations with some donations that they've had to expand the museum facility in this general area. We need to figure out how that may impact the master plan. This development is coming through for approval right now with,
It was already approved.
it's not approved yet. I'm still at plans review.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Because
the-
I went to the commission thing. and not
Right,
had
yeah.
that.
The plans have been approved.
Um,
The concept of the project has been approved, the plans and the public improvement agreement haven't been approved. That's not a public thing, that's an internal thing. But, they're showing, so we plan to put some parking here, museum might eat into that parking a little bit with their expansion. All that's been approved right now is the commercial site right here that fronts onto Main Street. The hotel site has not been approved at this point in time, it's at a preliminary level. But they will be building a road in with this project from this point right here, straight across connecting into the parking lot over here. At which point we need to be building our road around like this and connecting in. That's the master plan that's shown and that's what they're responding to. So we'll have to plan to build this road at some point in the future, and this is where the ice facility is currently shown in the master plan, and that may be needed for some other use.
Just need to know there was an ice facility shown there in the master plan.
So So I've checked out the master plan and that cool stuff. I just, that area, and I know you're not really inviting me to talk about this, but that area isn't, there's a lot of ecology in that area that's just not, that I brought up. Like there's a vernal pond that you can see from this picture, and you usually can't see it. There's a vernal pond so you can see that dark spot.
Yeah.
Nope, not that dark spot. Go down to down the left. Down. Right there.
Oh, that?
Yeah, so that has some crazy awesome amphibians in there. I found salamanders in that area. There's endangered species in that area.
All I can say is it's private property. So it's outside of what I can control.
But they would be held to through our city's process to making sure that there's ET species at all there. That
Yeah, city council has told me when I brought it up to Marcia, she's like, well, the wildlife people didn't find it. I'm like, well, I'm on it all the time. I'm the wildlife person.
But yeah, we don't
Yeah.
go out on private property.
Right, we have them, they hire consultants.
Yeah, and what a surprise that their consultants that they paid didn't find the species in 30 seconds that the people in the area found. It's yeah, there's stuff there, and there's an easement for a river easement for a reason.
Well, that's up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's all.
This, unfortunate to tell you, this, I'm responsible for all this dirt right here because this all came out of the Left-Hand Creek Flood Control Project. We hauled over here and then post-flood I hauled in more over here. This is just a result of bad grading. It's just a depression in the land. It's nothing, it may have turned into something that wildlife has moved into. They just didn't have enough dirt, so they left a low spot there. That's the only reason that's there.
Okay.
So just a little history on it. Quill Campus, and then we talked about Sandstone Ranch. Build out of phase 4 Sandstone. Longmont, here we go. That's down in here. There's more parking down in here. And then another 2, 3, or 4-plex could turn into something else. We'll have to rethink about that. You know, at least 2, you know, just asking recreation. What do you need more? Baseball? Softball? Pickleball? Like, what do you need? You need it all. And so that's.
Sandstone.
I just feel like pickleball is a flash in the pan, and we're just building more stuff.
We hear a lot of the otherwise there from a great percentage of the public, and so we're trying to address those needs as much as we
I don't
possibly
think it's a
can.
great percentage of the public. I think it's some
A
laughs.
vocally great percentage of the public.
Yeah, a vocal.
And we're not hearing anyone else saying anything else, so that's the great percentage of the public that we're hearing right now.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. So,
And I just as, because I think we all, I mean, we hear this stuff all the time for all kinds of things but I think in the national level even, we're seeing this is probably more than a quick flash in the pan at least. I do think there's a demographic shift in what people are.
Stephen Colbert's having a pickleball thing. I saw during the football game the other day. And then the last project is Dry Creek, again back down to southwest Longmont. Right here. The 2 projects are, you know, these fields are the fields that aren't used right now. We're going to turn these into synthetic. This is a future rec center location. This is the future outdoor pool location. But the balance of this park here is what we would be building with phase 2 in the third box, the complex projects.
That one I do get calls from the public.
That has a lot of corridors. And there's an existing 18-hole golf course out there that is not well used, not well maintained.
Disc golf. Yes.
Yeah.
Barely
a
She
disc
said
golf
18-hole golf.
Oh, I thought I said disc golf.
It's really rough.
It's
Right.
really
It's a
rough.
rough course.
Yeah, like what? I mean,
It's a rough disc golf course.
I see a lot of it, and I hear you saying, you know, like, and we're going to grade it, we're going to build a park. What about just having a park? Because there's just so much value and there's so much potential, play potential, and recreation potential. That's what all those kids are saying. Is like, do less. Like, why did we tear all the nature out of the Dickens area and then put a couple dead logs, leave a couple dead logs, and have it be the nature area? We tore all the nature out. Like, why can't we just leave some of this stuff and then let people be on it? And like right across, the kids were listing the rules that they thought were stupid. And one of them was like, you got to stay on the trail. Why the hell you have to stay on the trail, right? Like, you know, like this is like Like, why can't we just leave that how it is and have people enjoy it how it is? Like, what's wrong with that?
So you have to remember that in civic infrastructure, things might look like a park, but there are a lot of other things besides a park. The reason why Dickens is the way it is because it's a flood control project on open space within a nature area. So you have all of those different levels of things. We had to remove everything because we needed the flood capacity in that area. So you can't leave nature and have flood capacity. They're contrary to one another. So to remove the nature and then recreate.
In an urban.
In an urban, yes, thank you. Yes, in an area where we have already developed properties on both sides of it. So that's the reason why Dickens is where it is. We consciously have in our park system neighborhood parks, which are meant for local active play, community parks, which are meant for regional intensive active play, and nature areas, which are for passive recreation. We have nature areas throughout the city, including our greenway trails, which are areas for people to go and interact with nature. This
And I think
70
if you move
acres.
down that path, sorry, the piece of Danielle I'll talk about next, I think is the open space too. So I think we go from intensive community-driven parks to kind of less intensive, all the way up to open space where the human-centric piece becomes, tertiary to everything else.
So this community park here is one of several within the city. We have Garden Acres, which is here. We have Clark Centennial, which, that's getting a little hard in my eyes. I think it's somewhere in here, if I'm not mistaken. We have Sandstone Ranch, which is out here. And then Montgomery Farm, which is a future one. So for 100,000 residents, plus how much money do you make on baseball and softball tournaments and soccer tournaments every year? Your recreation budget relies on bringing teams in from around the country? $500,000?
Well, that's about $150,000 just in rental fees, plus the impact is significant.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are people from outside the community. If our community is saying that our community park, we want a nature area as our community park, why can't we listen to them? It's cheaper.
That's also hundreds of baseball families within our community too, so.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I
I
do think
get
the piece
that.
that Longmont is really good at is listening. And again, that's what's great about this group that sits here, is they bring those different perspectives. And I think Longmont, that's one of the things that I always say, our landscape architects and planners have done a great job of reaching out to the community saying, what do you want? I would say there's not a park out there that Steve hasn't talked to those neighbors and said, what are we really looking for in trying to address those needs. And I think the bigger picture, like Steve said, how we balance that across our community with our more natural areas and our community parks. But
We are trying to strike a balance. If you think about the master plans for Gallo and for South Clover Meadows, they are more than 50% native grasses, native area.
That, which is good, because, I mean, I'll tell you, nobody in that neighborhood plays pickleball. That Jackie didn't talk. That's Jackie's area. Okay, our lawn monsters didn't talk tonight, and some of them couldn't come. They don't play pickleball, right? That area is a Latino area, right? That's the Latino community park. They play groundies, because I play with them. They play groundies. They want groundies. They want a good groundies area, and they want a great place for grandma to sit while they have a picnic.
And I think that we'll be able to provide that once the park is done, all of those things.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing is that
And the other thing is, with those native areas, there will be signs that stay on the trail, because unfortunately, we can take one person walking off the trail, we can't take all the people walking off the trail, or else the grasses doesn't grow. Then we have pollution, we have erosion, we have irrigation challenges, we have, it snowballs as far as the operational side. So we do intend to keep people on the trails in these
right,
areas.
so
The
that they
St. Frank
can't
Greenway
interact
was
with nature.
The St. Frank Green was intentionally built with all those railings to have identified locations for people to come down and interact with the river, but not free fall.
Yeah, and so then they can't interact with nature, and so we're taking more nature areas away. I don't know. So we could go a long time.
We
Yeah,
could.
sorry.
Just in the interest of time, I think we should
Yeah.
probably wrap this.
Could you just, there was a community park next to Gallo Park.
Yes, Sisters. I forgot about that one. Thank you, Sisters.
So where does that fall here, and where does Montgomery Farms fall in any of this community?
Good
Yeah.
question.
there's interplay though with this and probably the tax as well.
Yeah, so Sisters, I forgot, I'm sorry to mention it, there's a 70-acre park right here, a future community park. That is not at all in anything we're talking about. There isn't any momentum behind that park developing right now. Could happen, don't know. One of the locations for the that could put a wrinkle in this is if Montgomery Farms is chosen as one of these, then we're going to need to master plan Montgomery Farms. You can't just put a building here and then expect the people to react around it. You have to get all the utilities up there, making sure they're not bisecting fields and things like that. So we would need to master plan this park site. That would probably kick out quail or kick out something else. Or we handle that outside of the design build world. That's very possible too. We just hire a consultant as part of the rec center. The architect to do the rec center, to do the master plan for the entire site, we can handle that.
This is if the rec center in a year passes and that site is chosen.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of interplay between all these pieces.
That's where recreation and parks development work together on those types of sightings and facilities. So really that's in a nutshell. We still need more staff. We're trying to do 8 projects in 5 years. It's nervous, makes me nervous, but we'll get there. We're using some new processes. We've heard from council and from the public that we need to get going. So I think Harold's guiding us towards something that's a little bit more, little less control. I'll be perfectly honest. I still have problems having less control over all these things. I don't like that at all, but I'll learn and we'll see.
Thanks,
Your
appreciate it.
metrics are gonna become real important.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll still be fun for you too.
It's a lot to bite off. It's an interesting 5-year ahead.
Great, well, thank you, Steve. And again, thank you for really your enthusiasm in this. I know it's a lot right now with everything we have going on, so.
I went to Vegas. Woo! Vegas alone in a conference is not a fun time, I'll tell you.
So the next piece is really, and I think, Aaron, I was going to say.
Were you going to just jump to this, or were you going to, because it
Oh,
might
I'm
be
sorry.
a transition if you want to.
That's what's this been on the agenda. Let's just see. No, I guess we can skip. Let's just go. I was going to go right to the open space because
Oh, yeah, well, we
transition.
should do the old
let's do
business
the.
first and then,
Yep, go to this.
so do you wanna say anything or you want me to just jump in first?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the next is about,
Sorry, one more
oh
thing.
yeah,
These 8 projects are not set in stone. If there are other projects that the board, and you can tell me next month, because the only 2 that are really dialed into is Clover Meadows and Fox Meadows, because that's where the direction we're getting. The other ones, if the board thinks that there's reason we should be looking to put efforts and money elsewhere rather than one of these, please let us know sooner rather than later, because we're basing a program around this. If there's different feelings, share them soon, next couple meetings. Thanks.
thank you. So the next item is just following up on the board candidate interviews, so you all probably remember, well, except those that weren't here, that Jeff and David let us know last month that the city council is trying a new process for selecting board members or for vetting applicants for advisory boards. And this new process involves a longer interview, not just the sort of 5-minute like speed dating. And it also allows current board members to be part of the process. And so Nicholas and I had the opportunity to join Jeff and David and Ben in a round of interviews for PRAB applicants last week. And since neither Jeff nor Manoj are opting to return, we had 2 seats open. And so ahead of the interviews, Jeff shared with us sort of some questions, and we went back and forth and got to have some input on what questions were asked. And he also shared some priorities that had been identified in terms of someone who has interest in ice skating or ice hockey, someone who has children participating in rec programs, someone who has interest in sort of parks, open space lands, greenways, natural resources, so broadly. And then we conducted the interviews, and based on the conversations with the applicants, we're recommending that we move one of the candidates that we interviewed forward based on sort of good alignment, relevant professional and civic experience, sort of relationship to the priorities that were identified. But we're recommending on holding off filling the second seat and waiting until the June recruitment so that we can do some additional outreach. I don't know if you want to say
That was really well said. I'll just
I had
follow that. After you had notes? Okay, alright. What I would just say is that the one candidate that we decided to move forward, I'm really excited about this person. I'm not sure we're saying names at this point, but they showed a lot of investment and interest, and they clearly had read our meeting notes and were invested in what we're discussing, and they will make a fine addition to the board. So that's all I have to add.
So it's my understanding under this new process that it goes forward to city council. I'm not sure exactly.
But do we want to
Yeah.
pass a motion to recommend?
I don't know, I'm looking.
Yeah.
I don't know
what the
that
next
process
step
yet.
is.
Let's.
Yes.
I don't.
You can
always-
We will interview those candidates or those applicants recommended by boards and commissions on December 10th.
Okay.
So those 5
Great.
minute speed day interviews
So you still do them, you just
will be
reduce
based
your
on
numbers.
substantial interviews
Great,
and
okay,
as the basis for your recommendations.
that's helpful. So I think it was our group's recommendation that we move one of the applicants forward, and David and Jeff have that information, and that we hold a seat open and wait until the June recruitment and do some more robust outreach.
And I think it's a great way to that hearing tonight. I think I'm hearing that we're not hearing from our whole community. I think this group and staff probably needs to do a better job of reaching out to our community, and they say we have professional staff that are on board that help us hit those target areas that we're really good at, but are there better ways to go and try to get our message out to a larger portion of our community? And I think that's one of the tasks I'd like to really work with this group and with staff on how we do a better job of trying to make sure when we get to that June that we have done a better, more robust job of reaching out to our community.
One thing to remember though also is that we have a Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan that is very clear as far as what our park and trail system should look like. That was adopted by City Council, and so that is really our guiding document at this point in time. So taking community parks off the board and making them nature areas would be a marked change from that document that's already been adopted that we're following. So that might be a time to have that greater conversation when that plan gets updated, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 years.
I do have a question. And this is a new process, so is it okay for the board, I'm asking you, Councilman, if the board can recommend just one of the two,
Sure.
and it will not necessarily look at the other one?
Well, I'll tell you, there's not just one mind on this, right? My own view is we ought to work with your recommendations. There are other views that we ought to have multiple recommendations, even if you have one seat to fill. If you had 4 good candidates, you ought to advance all 4 of them, as opposed to just one of them if you've got 4 good ones. Right? And then we would interview those 4 and make a decision. We haven't had the conversation. What if you have 2 open seats and you've only recommended one person by design, right, for the great purpose? I think it makes a lot of sense. We haven't had that conversation, and unless you have other people to advance at this time, you would advance the one nominee. We would interview, and I can't imagine that we would not, appoint your recommendation.
And you would have the discretion to appoint somebody else if you wanted to fill the seat. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I imagine, so for example, I know with Callahan board that I sit on that one, we have 6 candidates, which is crazy, and 4 spots available.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
So that'll be, I imagine that will be that group recommending 4, but you'll have 6 put in front of you.
No, well, it depends on we won't interview those. We would only interview the 4 that you recommend unless you decided of the 6 you had 5 good candidates.
Okay.
So that we would interview 5 and select 4 of the 5, right?
Okay.
If you had 6 applicants and only 3 good candidates, you would only recommend 3. I mean, yeah. So.
Is this a problem with calendar years? Is it set up? You can do whatever you guys like, or is there? No, this is for calendar year 2023 and 20. Is this a 2.5 year term now? Whoever takes over, and if we approve of somebody in June.
I think the intent is to try to get these all in the same term.
Okay.
So we're not doing it twice a year, because I have to tell you, the clerk's office gets real confused.
Right.
Where people are with their terms,
Yeah.
so.
So, in other words, our job is to do some outreach and see
For the next one.
for the next one. And are there any parameters that they have to go by? You know, do people have to have a college degree? Do they need to speak English?
You
Do
have to
they?
be residents of Longmont for 1 year.
Well, I think what we were looking, what we're looking for is so we have these sort of 3 areas of interest, and then I think, what are the perspectives that we feel like would strengthen the board and make sure that have sort of broadly reflective of the community. I think we really want someone who wants to be on the Parks and Recreation Board and really, cares about this, whatever their views about that are. But I think
Generally, this board and planning and zoning are the 2 board. Historic preservation, arts and public places, they're kind of those are the top 4, but this and P and Z are typically, we have the most applicants. People want to serve on this board.
Jeff was very surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's scared him off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, these board seats don't come up that often, and I really appreciate that opportunity for us to, inform how the board moves forward in the direction, the shape of the board, and so I think it's a great opportunity. So I think we need a motion if anyone wants to make one to, move forward the candidate that we're recommending as a result of the interviews. Can I make the motion? I don't know if we can do it.
No.
I feel like it has to be you guys.
Yeah,
I
right.
think one of you have to make the motion.
Alright.
So,
I don't know what the motion is.
I motion to recommend Sam Libby, and the name's out there, as the candidate we would like we'd like to recommend the city council to be appointed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board starting in 2023.
Do we have a second?
Oh, sure. This is really weird.
It
It
is.
just feels really odd. This is the first time with this process.
This is like they do it in Georgia?
It's actually the second.
Great, first time for this one.
Okay, thank you.
It's the second cycle.
I vote against
But I'll second because I trust that you 2 did a nice job.
Oh, that's a great one. I'm sure this did good.
And you 3 girls.
They did. We support it. They did.
All right.
They did a great job.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great.
Thank
So I don't know how this gets passed on, if you take it, if you,
David or Jeff will figure it out.
okay. But I do think, we only had 2 applicants for this board, which is just like really, really unusual.
Wow.
So I think it does say that we need to all do some significant outreach. And, that should be a bigger pool, and I think it, hopefully it would be reflective
I've
of
never
the
heard
park
of that.
users, parks and recreation.
6, 8,
Yeah,
10.
we had 6.
I have a question.
The world was upside down.
Councilmember Waters, since you're not interviewing people till December, it would only have 1 spot, instead of going another cycle without somebody, is there a process that you could open up and have somebody else,
I
apply
asked that
or
they
apply
can't
directly to
do
council?
that. That's my understanding is they only do it when they do it.
Yeah, there's a day when it starts and a day when it ends. It's like applying for a job and, the period of application closed. I don't know that that's the way it should be, but that's the way it operates right now.
Okay.
We should probably double the salary.
All right.
Maybe triple.
Yeah.
Why not? 20 times the salary we get. There we go.
All right, thanks everyone, and it was really an interesting process, even though sort of a small applicant pool, and I think it's a good idea. It does feel a little bumpy right now, but I think, having board members at least be able to have some opinion or say or input into the future
However
board
bumpy it
members.
feels, Paige, you should have been part of the process that resulted in all of it.
Well, it's funny though, I worry that we'll become inbred, whereas the previous process was totally random.
Yeah, way more random than it should be.
No, I appreciate that. I work with the mayor of Lafayette. His classroom is right across, like it's that close to me, and he's like, "Longmont is crazy. Like it's crazy to have like the city." He thought that city council having to listen to all the interviews. He's like, "That's crazy talk." That's like, and then I was like, "But we're moving towards this," and he was like,
I think it's a good balance.
No, I heard
I
you say
appreciate
you
hearing-
found a person with a broad, I mean,
"Yeah."
Yeah.
you were touching the basis for me that this is not just you're rehiring Dan or yourself or whatever. I mean, you know, that's
Yeah.
silly.
No, I mean,
We
our
need
intent
to
really
broad-
was to
Yeah.
Right.
continue to broaden and expand the voices
Great.
on the.
But my point is, it's just a lot of work for city council,
is.
and that city council has to want to farm this out a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of work
I
for
think it's
city
a good
council.
balance. I mean, I think
Yeah.
if I had known, like, just to think about in the future, you know, if we have multiple applicants that are qualified, we could forward those. Like, say we had
Right.
5 and we couldn't choose, we could give you 5, or we can give you 1.
So
I mean,
they
just
could
knowing
not
that, having that clarity is helpful.
So they can roll the dice.
Well, when you're sitting there on a Saturday, or generally it's a Saturday, and the question around the council table is, how much do we know about what that board or commission needs? And depending on how involved the liaison has been, at times there's not a lot of information or perspective on what a board or commission needs. And then the question is, who knows most? Well, it would be the staff, and the members of the board or commission would have much better insights than your council members would. And part of the reason that I think that the councils have stayed in the process isn't about the amount of work. It's less. We're not going to interview as many people. The reason it went to the council in the first place is that at some point in the past there was a feeling that there was too much cronyism if the interviews occur at this level. But I can tell you, there's just as I've sat around that table, and I can tell you there is as much cronyism around that table.
Right.
Like whose friends, you know.
And whose turn is it? And who's
Yeah,
applied
you're never gonna take
16
that out.
times? And yeah,
But I think
right.
you get less of it here. It can get pretty political, right, around that table. Way less so around this table, I think. So I like this adjustment that we made. So
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your work, you two.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, get ready. Someone else has to do it next time.
Yeah.
We were both in on this, so apparently.
A year from
It's
now,
up to you.
we'll be
Yeah.
winding down a year from now with no prospect for further advancement.
No prospect.
No, I think there's a 2-term limit.
Yeah, it goes into another.
I get 1 more year on this board, that's it.
Well, then you just like go for broke.
That's when we tear down all the tennis.
Right?
Tennis.
Nobody cares on the board.
And all the parks,
Tennis.
you gotta get rid of the lake, all the things I use, good luck with that.
We won't turn them down unless we strike them for pickleball.
Exactly. Just show up at every public.
Okay. Boulder County Open Space and Trails Grant.
Yes.
Yep, so I will kick this off. I'm going to share this conversation with Danielle. This is a piece that, as the group that's been here for a while, especially Dan Wolford, you know, from his inception of the open space program, has really worked very closely with Boulder County. And their ability is through their the GoCo dollars they get, plus their dollars they bring into their tax program. They reach out to all the communities within Boulder County and ask, how can we partner? What do you have out there that we could really work together to meet mutually objective goals? And Dan's not here, but you know, fortunately, I have a relationship with the county still. Danielle actually worked in the real estate division over at Boulder County for a while too. So we've kind of picked up where Dan has worked with the county and said, what are those next pieces we want to partner with the county, where we want to kind of look at those opportunities in those areas. And Danielle's been able to go through Dan's computer and pull up a few of those. And we can share those. So we can share those, what Dan's kind of had out there. But one of the things I wanted to do tonight, Danielle will, I think, talk about this a little bit too, is as you look at this and kind of look at our open space program and what we've achieved at Longmont and what we're looking to do, are the things that we as staff and we're going to Boulder County ask for, are the things that still aligning with this group? Is it we really want you to look at those agricultural lands to buffer us from our eastern community? It really is. We want to partner with you on these more of the regional trails out there. We really want you just to be ready when something is opportunistic, that family you never thought was going to settle is out there. So as Andy walks through that, think about it a little bit. I would like to hear from this group a little bit on where you kind of think we're at with what we we as staff should be looking for, because again, you know, these real estate transactions is willing buyer and willing seller, and sometimes those things come up, and we just want to make sure we do have alignment.
Yeah, so I guess the most recent submission that Dan put together for this city were 2020 requests. And the responses came back from Boulder County in 2022. So the year 2021 was skipped. I don't know why, I'm not sure why, but all municipalities skipped 2021. So it wasn't just us. So the responses to our 2020 requests, we had 3 open space requests. I'm not gonna get
Okay.
And 3 trails requests. So, and since I don't come to this group often, I don't know how much you know about these things. But I can tell you this, and then hopefully we can have discussion and questions. But Adam Dairy, and then Boulder County conservation easement on the 4 private lots.
So this is way across. This is when we got to go to on our tour, and these are where these processes take. A while. So this is the Adam Dairy right here.
Yeah.
So this is the newbie property right here that again this board was part of. These become open space properties here, water property here, then you right back into the trail down here. So this is the Adam Dairy that Boulder County is partnering with us on, and we are getting close. We just put in our 4th extension on this because it really falls into Firestone's ability to work with us and the family, because the family really wanted to keep 4 lots for the family down here. Actually, it's going to go all the way down to here, and that actually helps us because some of these areas have a lot of remediation, their old silage pits and stuff, so they're going to keep this. They will then build 4 lots for the family. That's a minor subdivision process. That process takes place in Firestone since it's within their city, so it's been annexed into Firestone. So it's on their plate. Our priorities are always their priorities, but they're working through that, and our goal is to close by the end of the year.
So Longmont will be all around that little Firestone pocket.
Longmont ownership,
Yes.
Firestone municipality, unless we de-annex.
Yeah, so Firestone is here, but this is
Okay.
we have the ability to annex this up in here at some point.
Okay, so fire response, that's how I understand things. Fire response right there. Frederick Firestone.
Yes.
Fire
Firestone.
response
No.
up above 26, City of Longmont.
You know, these have rural fire districts out here, like Steve mentioned, so probably
Mountain
the biggest, yeah, so Mountain View's probably the ones out in this area. The biggest thing for us that we have found, we have properties within other jurisdictions, the reason we like to annex it, is really for the law enforcement and the ranger's ability to enforce our rules and regs out there. So really, if something happens out here, it would be Weld County Sheriff, down here would be the Firestone Township Police who would have to deal with it out there.
And Longmont Fire has IGAs with Hygiene, Lions, Mountain View, any other ones, as far as response locations and times, and
If we wanted to
they gotta
build
figure it out.
a trail up here and we had to get a grading permit, well, right now we're going to clean up this house, we have to go through Weld County. If we did something down here, want to do a house cleanup and had asbestos in it, we'd have to go through Firestone and their process. So the more you can keep it in-house and following our process makes it cleaner, but it's just working with other entities.
And then, and so the municipalities submit their requests, and then Boulder County takes them in and responds to each of them. And so in this, Boulder County is already working with us. They've committed $2 million to this for the conservation easement over the agricultural parcel piece of the Adam Dairy. So they're already involved.
Even though that, none of that is Boulder County.
No, but again,
No.
they take those dollars that they want to work with their partner communities within Longmont. That's a high value to us to try to make that connection up to St. Vrain State Park, to try to keep that loop that goes down to the Sandstone Ranch eventually. So it is really us working with them and saying, yeah, they really don't have an interest other than working with the municipal partners to try to make some of these
So they're
pieces
just being
together.
really nice, I guess.
It's county residents.
Yeah, we're county, I was gonna say, we're county residents and we're a portion of that, so.
And they're looking at all of the municipalities all around the county and what that they're submitting.
Louisville,
and-
Lafayette,
and-
they're-
And, you know, balancing all of that. And so next, it's the parcel east of Clover Basin Reservoir, which is a 14-acre parcel.
So this is a piece down here. So this is one, again, Boulder County helped with this one too. This is McLaughlin we heard about, but Clover Basin is up here. And I'm sorry, Steve, you hit R on that one.
Sure.
Does everyone know where we're at up here? So this is Logman Reservoir down here. Steve just talked about the Dry Creek or
Dry Creek, yeah.
Dry Creek up in here. And
That's
then this is
Nelson Road there.
Yeah, that's Nelson Road.
So
and
the plan
75th.
with that is to keep that as a more natural area.
It really is. That's
right?
the places that I was, again, gonna try to ease in that conversation about how we try to do that balance of, you know, getting people into these natural areas. So here really was to keep it more natural, potentially put a loop trail around this, and then maybe a bird blind or something, because it really does draw a lot of migratory birds up there.
There's a
People
lot of
go out-
hawks right there.
Yeah, so instead of being such an intensive place for activities, no pickleball, no baseball fields, sorry. But someplace people could go out there and truly, maybe do some non-motorized, just canoeing out there, but really the biggest thing is preserve the wildlife and put some potential bird blinds and stuff like this in, people watch that. There's a piece of property down here. And I'm not sure if it's this one here or this one up here, but
That's the southern one.
I think it's the southern. I see the for sale sign quite often, but it allows us to tie into it and make some connectivity down to the AHI property down here, allow for some potential parking, because it really does get pretty tight, because this is all areas we want to preserve down here because of these salt wetlands and kind of grasses and stuff and wildlife down here. So if we could get something down here, potentially put some sort of trail area, get a connection coming under the road, coming this way up from the AHI property. This property here, Logman Reservoir has a trail around it, and then there's actually a
Where's
full.
the blue sky loop, isn't it?
That's right, that's,
Yeah.
so right around the Blue Sky Loop right here, I believe. So it's just north of Loggerman, going up 75th, loops along, down by these ponds, and then comes back down along these private property lines there, so that's the Blue Sky Trail. And then what Steve would, and I think it's probably, I'm trying to get ahead of Danielle here, but what Steve would like to do is they come in from this Dry Creek area.
I'd like to build an underpass under 75th to connect the Dry Creek Trail that extends all the way from soon to be Sunset Street west to 75th.
Great.
And then connect into AHI and then maybe an underpass
It goes up to,
to Clover Basin. The Nelson, maybe we can get out way without an underpass. It's just the sight lines are pretty tough and a lot of speeding, a lot of biking fatalities and things out there. So probably
So
an
Danielle,
underpass.
is that, that's an approved project, or it's a project that's being submitted to
Yeah.
the
So we submitted it to Boulder County as, you know, this is something that is a priority for us. Will you partner with us? And their response was that whenever the opportunity becomes feasible and funding is available, basically, like when you're ready to meet with us, come meet with us, because we've got some things that we've got some things that we need to get into a row before we can go to them. So it's kind of, it was carried forward from the previous report, so I think he's keeping it on the forefront by doing it 2 years in a row there. And their response in 2019 was like, well, it's not even in the 5-year, no, that's not that one. They're saying yes, come to us when you're ready.
and we're just waiting for a landowner to be willing to sell?
yeah, I think
or-
right now it's probably landowner we want to sell, and it, you know, we oftentimes open space programs get accused of, you know, increasing market rates because we pay higher than the market. The piece on that is when you have these assemblage pieces. So it's like we say, go get a comp. As well, when you have a house with 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, you find another house with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. Can you find another piece of property that allows for parking next to a reservoir to protect the wildlife area and allow Steve to tie into it? So there really is no comp a lot of times, those things that really become what they call an assemblage piece. To put this piece together, you need that. Oftentimes the owners know that, and it really does inflate the cost sometimes, but we are going to be reasonable with the taxpayers' dollars. So we're not going to pay something that can be brought into, this could be right there, it really could be a McMansion sitting there at some point. We probably will not be able to compete with that, but we definitely want a willing seller that is willing to negotiate a price that we think is fair.
But we do own the other piece. no?
Yes, yep.
The third open space request this last time was Highland Ditch water rights. If Longmont successfully purchases the Olander property, which is 150 acres, the request is for Boulder County to help restore the original 4 shares of the Highland Ditch water rights to the property. And Boulder County is probably willing to partner as soon as that becomes feasible. That's their response.
And that's where we were out for part of our field trip, right?
Yes, Olander is a little bit north of this, so Olander is a piece, I want to say it's right here or right here. It's got those oil and gas wells around it.
I thought it was that one, to the west, I thought, but I could be wrong.
This one here?
Yeah.
So the Olander property is one that the city, prior to me even being here, has wanted to acquire, again, kind of protecting this area all north, this watershed north of the Union Reservoir. Again, in our negotiations, we were not quick enough. We had a developer come in out of the area, actually out of state, and put in a higher offer. They then sold the water off of it, so it's basically dry land. The development they wanted to do really has fallen apart. So now they're trying to sell us that property at the price that you paid to have water on it. So we are still willing. Again, these take a long time sometimes to try to make sure that people understand where they're at and what we can really pay. The odd thing is, Boulder County has had a mission to try to increase their water portfolio because all of the farms in this area, if it's Longmont farms, if it's Boulder County farms, they're all water short. It's really about 3.5 acre feet of water per acre. Really makes it really truly agricultural, a farm that you can really farm with the proper amount of water. So Boulder County was out buying up water, and they actually bought the water off that farm when they separated and sold it. It's not typically the practice to dry up farms, but someone had already pulled that Highland water off.
So Boulder County owns that.
So yes, and they have farms up in this area that definitely can benefit from the Highland water. But we reached out and said, if we could get that Olander property at a reasonable price, would you be able to put the water back on it? And that'd be their contribution.
Interesting.
And so then, in terms of trail requests, there were 3: Dry Creek Greenway to Loggerman. Boulder County's response was that Longmont owns McLaughlin in fee, with Boulder County holding the CE. And the county is willing to work with Longmont on a process to coordinate trail planning in the area. So we were just talking about the north end of Open Sky Trail to the new subdivision on the east side of 75th.
That'd be steep, really.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
that's right there. We own McLaughlin, which is Clover Basin.
Yes.
We don't own Loggerman, and so that's the connection. There's already an at-grade crossing at Clover Basin Drive crossing right there,
This is the next.
which is semi-safe. There's an island, there's a respite island in the middle.
Cars are just going 60 miles.
I know.
Yeah, so
You
an
can see a
underpass.
long way.
An
At least
under-
you can see.
Yes, but an underpass would serve the community
Right.
well, especially on the trail systems in the north there.
That's
So.
the next. A trail request, Loggerman to Clover Basin request for a box culvert under Nelson Road connecting AHI to Clover Basin Reservoir. And then McLaughlin. The city anticipates the acquisition of the Clover Basin Reservoir recreational lease and master planning the site in Longmont's 2022 to 2027 CIP.
I think we did acquire those recreation rights for the reservoir, if I'm not mistaken. Thought Dan completed that.
For Loggerman?
For
Clover Basin.
Clover Basin.
Yes.
The one north
Yes.
of Nelson.
He did.
Yes.
He did, okay. Oh, this is a little old, so
No, no,
sorry. The county has not identified staffing or funding. This is in the 3-year planning horizon. So,
Good, because we don't either.
Right.
not quite ready. Then the last trail request was the St. Vrain Greenway Phase 12, the one
Which
that
is what
goes
Steve talked
west
about.
from Golden Ponds that we were talking about.
Go
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, to Pella Crossing, the Boulder County
Yeah.
Pella Crossing. Longmont's requesting trail funding to be included in the county CIP to make this connection. And Boulder County says that they will be developing a trail plan for the Greenway corridor between Pella and Airport Road that utilizes the fee acquisitions of the Golden, Fredstrom, Zweck properties, scheduled to be completed in 25 and 26 respectively.
So that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, 25 and 26. Staff will work to plan and design a greenway trail in this area prior to acquisition in 2026 so that construction can commence upon final acquisition.
So with the greenway trail, does that mean that all of it has to be a paved trail, or?
No.
The city builds our greenway trails paved, the county builds their soft surface. So we'll transition from concrete on the west side of Airport Road to soft surface heading west of Pella.
Okay.
Share with me your thought on that, where you,
I'm just picturing where I'm gonna run versus where I'm gonna bike. That's all I was picturing on that. It really is like, ooh, soft surface,
so we
helps my knees.
but we typically in that design, Steve can correct me, but on the cities, we don't.
It's a 10 and 3. It's a 3-foot crushed pine edge.
We have a crushed
Just like on the
pine
St.
edge.
Greenway
Yeah,
Trail.
Exactly, so
It's a
we
3-foot crushed pine edge.
do a good job of trying to balance those multiple uses on the
Yeah. Big old trails.
So are you guys, so these are all sort of in the past, are you gonna be making proposals?
That's
For
what
another
this,
round?
that's, bringing this to you is for this discussion, because the next round is due by February of 2023. And then I think they'll respond, somewhere in September. So it's usually, I'm saying 6 months in these 3 that I have, so.
So I think what we have out there, Daniel, would you mind just kind of, the ones we really have out there.
Just like review it?
Yeah, the ones so Adam Dairy is like check, that's kind of, they've already put the money in on that, McLaughlin put on that. But we have the trail kind of connection, we have the water for.
The 4 shares of water at the Highland Ditch water rights, to go with Olander. The parcel east of Clover Basin next to McLaughlin, which is 14 acres. And then, those are the open space, 3. And then the trails were Dry Creek Greenway to Loggerman to Clover Basin, and St. Vrain Greenway Phase 12, which is going west from Golden Ponds.
And are these, you're asking for whether we think we
Those
should
are still-
redo those?
Right.
Request these again, or I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I think
This
it's
is hard because I feel like you're getting limited context, right? You're just getting like what Dan did last year, and I have more context because I see I see it from the previous year, and then in 2015. What I also saw is the full reports, and how other communities did it, what they're asking for, how they're putting it forward, how many open space requests, how many trail requests. Every community does a little bit differently. What I noticed is that we're requesting just a short list of things, and so take that for what it is. That's what I noticed compared to some other communities. So
do you think it would be, given that we don't have to submit anything until February, should we put this on the agenda again next month? And
it seems like
I
we
think it would be
really have a
interesting
full
to hear-
discussion right now because
Right.
we're just what?
if there,
Can we have more information? And I think we can give you more information so that you can have a more robust conversation.
The discussion is, do we want this? Is that
Well,
what
it's
the
kind of the
discussion
stuff
is?
that David was saying
Yeah,
at the
if
beginning.
those. Go ahead.
In terms of priorities, like why are we putting these forward as a community? What are the priorities? Are we really, or are we trying to balance it? Are we trying to put 6 things forward and we're making sure that we're preserving special agriculture, community buffers, what is the list? Is that what we're trying to do, is to balance all those things? Or are we really trying to hit agriculture hard because we see a gap in the community that we really need? Because we're almost moving to a time where there are fewer things to buy, and they're harder to buy, and so we have to make tougher decisions. And staff is moving into more managing what we have and things like that. So the conversation should be around what are the priorities, and what are the city priorities now that things are more limited to buy.
Oh, that makes sense. Like, if we're looking like we really need a buffer, I'm really afraid that we're going to grow into Erie, and Erie's gonna grow into Longmont, and there's not gonna be any delineation. We should look into, buying Tanaka, or something like that. Okay, that makes sense. So do you want us to say, I think we should look at the Bryant and
I think those big pictures, so you go that specific, or you could start, I think what I'd like to hear is, we have looked at our neighbors directly to the east, and we really should start thinking about trail connections and buffers towards Erie. I've heard that a little bit, it hasn't been something that, as I look back at the requests I've seen in the past, that has really been there, but those are the pieces as this program develops, and we really want to see where we put these scarce resources to do something that is strategic. I think makes sense. I think one of the things that we have is the fallback is that here's what we put out there. Are those in alignment? We have trail connections, we have some open space. Are those the ones we just say, yep, let's just go ahead and keep that on the plate for this year, and we as a group can come back and prepare a little bit more for next year? Or we say, we want to have a more robust conversation in the next month or two before February.
I mean, I still think that would be valuable.
Yes.
I mean, we could all think about it. You know, I mean, one thing that we've talked about previously in this group is just sort of building connectivity, especially along river corridors. And, you know, I'm particularly interested in sort of anywhere where we still have intact habitat and can build sort of movement corridors for habitat. You know, that would be a priority for me personally that I would want to put out.
And when you were saying underpasses, my thought for the underpasses wasn't people can look right and left, but I really would like, you know, the deer, you know, I want the deer to be able to get through. I want the mountain lion to be able to get through so that it can go sit in somebody's garage. I think that's pretty
So I'll look back to something that we talked about a little earlier on. That's one of the reasons we have hours in our parks, because we know those animals are crepuscular, nocturnal, and if we aren't using those with human activity those times, that is when wildlife actually gets to use those corridors, those parks and stuff there. So if you look at our wildlife cameras, it's amazing how much wildlife comes up after the people leave. And we get mountain lions coming through underpasses, we get deer coming through underpasses that are probably weren't designed as do you think
No, we don't take into deer height.
Right.
But there's really no reason not, you know, like why aren't we building those and then like with them forward instead of us forward?
I don't think there's anything we do that in our designs that precludes wildlife or movement.
But I mean, really thinking of that forward, not.
Like, I really like that. I mean, I'm really glad that the city is thinking about that Clipper Basin Reservoir. I mean, because there is so much waterfowl there, and hawks and migratory birds, and you know, I think anything we can do to build that and sort of connect it to there's you know some natural and natural-ish areas, you know, on that sort of west and southwest side, and then connecting up into the foothills.
Right.
And
See,
then
that's where
you know, building connectivity from the foothills out to St. Grace State Park, you know, like if you're a migrating animal.
Right, and then hopefully from St. Grace State Park, then we have the Barefoot Lakes region and all that stuff that we don't have much say over, but it would be nice if those communities would start working with us, because those communities are getting big fast.
Right.
Yeah, you made some great points there, and I would, as you're thinking through this is the map on the city website of the open space property. Now, I don't know how current this is, unfortunately. Danielle shaking her head no, there's other acquisitions that we've made.
Montgomery's
that aren't shown, right. Well, it's shown as county, but yeah. This might be a starting point if you're concerned about buffering. And then, you know, Boulder County just released a new trail map, and that shows the trail connectivity between counties, or municipalities, at least in Boulder County. Doesn't capture the efforts that Danielle has been making to get out to Weld County and communities to the east. But those are some things that can help you help frame your context as far as what your goals are. I really think that might be something that helps you when you're thinking about this. The other thing to remember is that we're lucky in Longmont in that we don't rely on Boulder County to build a lot of our trail system for us. Other municipalities, smaller municipalities within Boulder County, do rely greatly on Boulder County funding for those type of things. We are lucky enough to have in our street tax and our Parks and Greenways fee mechanisms to develop funds to fund our trails. And so where Lafayette might be asking for 20 things, we don't have to ask for 20 things. We already have funding mechanisms for some of those things. Obviously, you can try to stretch your dollars where there's opportunities, but some other municipalities that are smaller might be asking for more things just because they've got a wish list.
Well, and if we're looking at things like, you know, human life, like we're all so interconnected, all of East County is so interconnected and well, you know, Boulder, like, you know, as people and as animals and all that stuff, it's okay to let some of the other municipalities get some of those resources because they can, because that's part of our community too, whether we say it is or not. Lafayette is part of our community, so is Louisville, so is Boulder, you know, it's all our community need.
So could we put this on the agenda again next month and just talk specifically about priorities, and if Danielle, if you or anyone else has
Speaking of
other
anyone
perspective that you wanna bring to share with us, then I think that would be sure too.
Do you want to share an updated open space map with Brad before?
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
That might be, if that's easily accessible or not. I'm putting them on the spot.
Yeah, no, I found one today.
Okay,
I'm just looking. I want to see if McLaughlin's on it. I want to see. I don't have a date on it.
Brett's
That'd be
also
great.
the best contact.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure
you
that the
copy our
map is
communications,
being
like,
made.
on the
Oh, it's
website.
Kathy was
Right.
working on
Well,
it.
yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
Is there a future Dan?
So we're,
To be named?
I'm still in the process of looking at, Dan has grown that position from just Dan running the first open space program before we had properties to having the open space program and properties, to manage those open space properties, to then saying, well, you manage weeds, so why don't you manage the weeds at the water treatment plant? And then it's like, we manage prairie dogs in open space, so why don't you manage the prairie dogs at the airport? And then you manage ecological and natural resource stuff on open space, so why don't you do it at the landfill? So there's a lot of pieces to Dan's job as I kind of look at what we need to do to define those roles and how best we could advertise those, that I haven't gone out to advertise yet, but
there is money, there is
money there
Gotcha.
for doing a replacement for that position or something very
in the
similar.
meantime,
I basically,
you two are covering it.
so we're taking on a lot of the dance stuff, and then Jim Crick and I are taking on all of the prairie dog management, the mosquito management, the weed management, and the natural resource side of it.
Awesome.
So thank you, Danielle.
And the timescale for a replacement is not before February.
Right.
That's why we
Yeah.
need to be
But we-
inputting and
Correct.
having this
We don't
discussion.
need that position to do this
Yeah.
process.
Gotcha.
We got it.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
got it.
Got it.
We got it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
We didn't need to end with that either.
So no, thank
Okay.
you, Danielle.
So I'm just looking at, I think when we get to 8:30, we have to vote to extend our time.
I think you're right, because it was 9 o'clock when it was 7, so now,
Yeah.
So do we, I mean, we're at the end of our business.
Yep.
Do we want to extend for 15 minutes, 30 minutes?
See, Matt?
do we have someone to speak?
No, Matt just,
Oh, sorry.
he's a friend of mine. He just likes to get his hair around. I was wondering if he was one of the ones you guys interviewed, so I
No,
was signaling it, he wasn't.
He was the late comer. That was the question.
I see.
So he's like, I forgot.
Oh, did he?
Check it in somehow. And I'm like,
You know,
I don't think so, Bill. Ask.
He can talk to the clerk's office and see if they can get him in.
Yeah.
I think they're just exploring this process for the first
He was
time.
interested in applying?
Yeah, he was interested. So, but yeah, he called me the day after the student.
Yeah,
I think
anyway.
that we
Okay.
extend 15 more minutes to zooming through the next little bit.
Is that a
Move.
motion?
I move that. That's the verb.
All right, do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? All right, 15 minutes. So does anyone have any items from the packet? Any questions from the updates that were provided? Yep.
I do. So I think this is for Steve. The clay soils being moved from Clover, Basin area, over to Isaac Walton. Are we noticing people or like the area? Meaning, because it's gonna be like people are gonna be like, okay, it's February, I'm gonna go sledding, and they're gonna be like, what? What are all the dirt?
I don't have anything to notice yet because I don't know the Corps'. It's not a contract that's gonna come from the city. The Army Corps will hire their own contractor.
Okay.
Once I get a construction schedule, it's gonna be one of the first things I do. It's not gonna be the first thing. So it's gonna be a bit of a quick turnaround. But I plan to have our communications team figure out how to best message that to I'm trying to rely more on our communications team because they're professionals and they have access to all these different ways to do things that I don't. I don't do Facebook and all that stuff, so they'll figure out a way to alert the public in the best way. But yeah, some sort of notice will be important, but it's probably going to be late March at the earliest.
That's what I was thinking, is that when I looked at that timeline, and so that would be after the sledding season, and it'll be sad for next one, but you just don't want to do it right in the middle of the sledding season.
We will not have control over the timing of that. The contractor will start taking dirt when the contractor starts taking dirt.
I'm just thinking frozen at that point in time.
It gets done.
Yeah, right.
I was actually looking at that hill during the sunrise stand, or the turkey trot, and they're going to be taking almost 2/3 of that hill away and then bringing it back. But I was actually looking at the contract documents last week, and the contractor is required to do a topographic survey of that hill before they start construction, pull their dirt away, bring back dirt in, and create the exact same hill.
Really?
Yeah.
Make it better with a little ski lift.
It's more extreme.
Yeah.
It's a temporary hill. Remember that hill when Dry Creek Park gets excited.
It's not temporary when it like lasts 10 years.
Well,
It
I've got a
goes
plan
up
now.
there.
That's box number 3.
Right. But we don't, yeah, you don't
All right.
plan yet.
Other items from the packet.
I have one that's related. You mentioned St. Vrain, wherever the Greenway.
Phase 12 is west.
No. We just passed a bond issue.
Oh, yeah.
Resilience St. Vrain.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that years in the future? When does that happen? Is this a design build thing coming up, or okay?
I will be on the team, but we'll be looking at how to best issue those bonds. That's probably a 6 to 9 month process is my guess. Hire a consultant if we don't extend the existing contract that did all the design so far, which I would be surprised if we didn't.
Okay.
But we'll be.
So that jumps right into the list here.
Not this list. That is
But I mean,
that project is what takes me away from this list. That's not my work plan. That's just, I'm the subject matter expert for all the stuff that they're doing. That's being run by engineering. Josh Sherman's the project manager on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So Josh was here the last time he kind
Yes.
of talked about that.
Right.
Yeah. So Josh depends heavily on Steve. He also depends on Jim Crick, and Danielle's been involved in it too. So we're again, it's hard for everyone are such professionals group and they add such value. So it's hard to say we're pulling people off to focus on stuff, but we're trying to keep Steve involved with that, but also recognizing that this is going to be the priority, and we have other people who can hopefully help out a little bit too. But
okay, well, your little update about Resilience St. Vrain reminded me that, hey, we just heard about that a week ago, so.
And the updates didn't do you justice because I was in Las Vegas.
No, that's fine.
And Kathy wasn't doing it, so anyway, they'll be better
do it for Dan
next month.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't plan to sit on that. We plan to move forward on that and
Okay.
try to get the project complete. Realistically, what is it, 2023 and I now 2026? Like I'm spitballing here. It's going to take quite a while to design it, and we got to build it. There is a little bit of land acquisition to do on the west side of Hover, so it's going to take some work.
Yeah, I'm remembering when we passed the golf course bond issue, and zip has happened at, for example, Twin Peaks about, a new.
They got a new clubhouse when it burned down.
Right, but there was, what we passed, what I voted for was an irrigation system.
It is my understanding, and this is not the golf board, but they are trying to get a project manager on board to manage both sides.
Right, that's why I was asking. We just plan to, are we going to do better than that on parks?
The U Creek maintenance facility,
like,
which is part of that bond, is almost ready for construction. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
That's getting close.
Sorry, that was sort of on the packet.
So something I saw in the packet that I was just had like a suggestion about. It was item 8 on ecosystem management. Is that staff is doing bird monitoring surveys at Union, and then staff will also be doing fish surveys. And I'd like Taylor to do some more work because I want to know she's going to be mad. But really, I feel like that's stuff that the public would enjoy helping out with. I feel like that as a project, those are projects that are high value volunteer projects for the volunteers and for you all too.
So I'll let Danielle.
Yeah, there is opportunity, especially on the bird stuff. If you have students or people
people interested in doing that. Taylor is overall managing the volunteer program, but Scott, our wildlife biologist, is working with the bird volunteers, and so so each year we run a raptor nest monitoring program as well as songbird monitoring at different places, and that expands and contracts as needed, but depending on your level of expertise as a volunteer, if you know everything about birds and you can kind of lead a pair, if you want to do songbirds, or if you're not an expert and you want to learn and you want to go out there with somebody, you can be paired up with them and you can record. But you can learn from them. Those opportunities are there, part of our existing programs, but they're not like on the daily calendar for the volunteer events in that same way.
They're in the ones that said the ongoing.
Exactly.
So I wanted to make sure that these were part of it, because I looked that you had this, and like fish surveys, that's like super fun. Like fish surveys.
That's usually
it's grad school, so
that's us
cool.
doing it
With CPW.
along with the state. And so that's them doing it and us
We're all
helping them out.
volunteers kind of on those.
Okay.
We're the volunteers there.
Because it is super cool.
It is super cool. But
So
like,
the
that
state
was
might
something-
have that opportunity for
Okay.
fish shocking, because I've been out with volunteers in other counties where the state is taking volunteers, but yeah, that's CPW.
And I would say our bird monitoring program is probably one of our longer running volunteer programs we've had that I think is one of the best. Boulder County, City of Boulder, they all have great ones, but Longmont really does have a really strong.
It's a really important program
It is.
too, because we're doing that in places where we're thinking about how do we want to develop this area, or what's going to happen here, what are we planning for this area, so we do bird surveys ahead of that to figure out what exactly we have. So it's
It is
really
a
important.
piece
Like my
to-
salamander survey.
Right,
It's
that's-
data.
I was going to say that really is
Yeah.
a piece that we don't really go on private property, but with the birds, we definitely have nesting sites that we know are adjacent to, and a lot of the language and code is saying that if you're aware of those spots, so we can ground truth. So if we get a contract that comes out and says nothing on this property, like, well, we know there are nesting bird sites if it's migratory birds, or if it is our eagles and
Yeah, the raptor program is really fun too, because you get assigned a nest for a season and you can come back if you want to, or you don't have to. I did it as a volunteer with my son when he was 8. And so we got to come to the same nest. We were looking at the osprey nest in the golf course off of
Yeah, not Twin Peaks, Southwest Corner.
Twin Peaks, thank you. And we were the spot that we thought about viewing it from was off the busy road, and I was like, well, I don't like this. And so we were in the neighborhood on the cul-de-sac, and neighbors were coming out in the morning and telling us what they saw, and so it was really fun to do that. And he learned a lot, about the binoculars, about the raptor, about the season of the raptor, about
Yeah.
when are we gonna see the babies and how long do they sit on the eggs? So
Cool thing. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that there was volunteer stuff going there, and then apparently it's well done to do fish surveys. Okay, cool.
So I had a question just sort of on a different tack. I'm excited to see that the ice pavilion is opening, and just wanted to see if everything is good.
Keep that
Is
machine
it,
running
like-
for the next couple of days.
Is
If
everything
we
like,
are
are
on
you
track.
getting staff and things
Yes,
are
the-
together and there's no like
We have been
cracks in the
on
concrete?
schedule. We revved up the chiller last week. It was running at 50% until Monday today, and the park came in and they were able to get it going at 100% now, and keeps us on track. The cool weather is helping a ton right now to make ice, so we project to be ready on Friday.
You can just use my feet, I swear to God. You can just use my feet.
Well, I know lots
So
of kids
it's-
are excited for it.
Yeah.
It's gone real well. So fingers crossed.
Awesome.
The thing doesn't blow apart at any moment.
It's a pretty unique, special resource. So.
We're excited about having a new entry set up.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm curious to see what that
It'll be new, so it'll be a little bit challenging, but we're confident it's going to be helpful.
Any other questions from the packet? I think we've gone next to items from staff.
I think we've done that on my
Can I give you an update you didn't ask for?
Sure.
This is our chance.
Oh, you
Yeah, because I have a couple items in there. Item 2, under ecosystem management, the Button Rock management plan. This went to print, and I had, the more updated update about that is that we're well into writing the document, which is going to be 4 chapters. Chapter 1, Chapter 2 are complete. Chapter 3 we're almost done with, which is the long chapter, the existing conditions of everything that was found in the data gathering and things. And then Chapter 4, which is going to be our management direction, implementation priorities. So we were hoping to come to you with I was hoping to come to you with our presentation, and but it just wasn't, there was no way that I could get that done and give you enough time to review a large document. So we pushed it to the first quarter of 2023 to come to you. And so I just wanted to tell you that, and to ask if you're getting a new member or members, do you know at this point, are you going to keep your same time slot, Mondays
Most likely.
in 2023? Because I'm going to plan on using that, whether I'm going to, and will you meet in January? Because I'm trying to schedule either coming in January or February to present to you. And it'll be,
Yeah, we will, I mean, I think it's really unlikely we'll change our meeting place or time. I mean, it's been the same as the whole time I've been on here.
Me too.
And
okay.
we've always met and had a January meeting. So.
Okay, so then I'm going to plan
And we've
on
got a placeholder for Button Rock of we
I
keep
know.
pushing
So,
it.
I keep pushing it, and I wanted to give you the details of why and what is going on right now and how far we have come and how we wouldn't want to slight the process right at the end and slap something together and not give you the time that you need. So that's.
So Danielle has done way more than our contract would have thought she would have had to do to make this what it is. She's really had to step up and take on a lot of work that I think we would have expected others to have been doing.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I had is, I don't know if you noticed, but one of the students complained about the park being closed at dark. That's the first I've heard since our ordinance changed from anybody in the community complaining about parks being closed at dark. Just thought
And
I'd say
I
that.
did not feed that to the
That's fine.
students at all. I seriously, I mean, like you should have seen the they didn't know they were doing this except for the students that plan this stuff. But the lead up to it was, how do you feel in this park? What feels right? What does this remind you of? All this stuff, and like the prompts and things that they led to it, and that's what.
I love hearing that stuff. It's great.
Yeah. It's really fun to hear from them.
I hoped it was nice, and sorry that I didn't have more of our lawn monsters, but the county's the county. Like, this is all our community, so.
Anything else from staff? Anything else from the board? Okay, then we can have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Dinner and a glass of
All
wine.
right, the meeting is adjourned.